you. You all saw in the Columbine Connection the call for some people to work on the stewardship campaign. Well, I saw that and I said, I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. Thank you. The choir, that was Reverend Jenny said, didn't have to play today, but because it's Stewardship Sunday, they came and thank you. They are willing, we're all willing, because to be hopeless would really seem strange. I met with the members of the staff. I met with Sarah Weed, and she and I came up with the theme, It's in Our Hands. And that's because Sarah said something to me that I didn't know before. We, the congregation, is at the top of the organizational chart. Not the staff, not the board. It's the congregation. We literally own the power of this church. That's something to really hold tight, because to be a steward is to fully integrate that object of what we have into our own lives and into the church. Met with Reverend Jenny, and we both read Peter Bloch's book on stewardship. When I had the company before I retired, we all read that book, and it changed the company, because those of us who believed in it said, this isn't about receiving, this is about giving, this is about making it ours. Today we're going to explore Stewardship 2024 for each one of us and for our church. And it is about money. It's hard sometimes to talk about money because all of us have a different relationship to money. In my opinion, money is not good or bad, it just kind of is. Helps us pay for things like food and other necessities, education. And sometimes we give to charities, which is great. But this church, for us today on Stewardship Sunday, is not a charity. When we give to a charity, we are giving to them so that they can perform their mission as best they can. Graceful Cafe, so they can feed the unhomed people in Littleton. We give to the Arthritis Foundation so they can cure that disease, or to our favorite educational institutions so they can give scholarships. But we're in a different category today. We're talking about pledges, not donations. A pledge is a pledge to support our church in investing in its future. When we fill out the pledge card, we do not attach any money. We don't attach a donation to it. What we're saying is, beginning in July of 2024, which is the beginning of our fiscal year, we pledge to give X amount of money to this church. Now, why would we do that? What do we want? What is our why? And that's W-H-Y. What is your why? Why would you do it? What part of owning this church is good for you? Last Sunday, we heard from 6 of our wonderful members, Danny, Richard, Everest, Andrea, Bijou, and Lisa. They gave their testimonials as to what is their why. For me, I will be pledging because I love Sunday mornings. It's just a really special part of my week. I look forward to it and to being with my friends here. They're great friends. I also like the leadership opportunities that this church has provided for me. Sue Zloth and I took this leadership on during a kind of low point in this church's history, and we worked together and really enjoyed it. Later, my granddog bit Sue Zloth twice. And actually, our friendship was hurt. But we got together, and just like our covenant says, we openly discussed it, and we are just as great of friends, if not greater now. She can't be a model anymore because she's got a scar, but she has forgiven me, and I've forgiven the dog and her. I don't know if in another place that friendship would have survived. It's interesting. I also was part of a financial team a while ago. Cheryl Polatsky, Lydia Straglin, Sarah Weed, and I uncovered the finances of this church. We had great fun doing it. We saw the big picture and the little picture. And we're going to do it again because you deserve to see that. And after this fiscal year closes, which is June of 2024, we will present to you the fiscal picture of this church from the past year and the final budget for the next year. That will be in a potluck, probably August, as soon as the books close. But today, we're focused on stewardship. We want to let the board know how much money they can plan on having for the next fiscal year. How much should you pledge? We're all at different stages in our life. I remember I was on food stamps when I first came to Denver. At that point in my life, I would have pledged $1. And that's all you need to pledge to be a member or a pledging friend of this church is $1. Right now, I can afford a little bit more, thank goodness. The UUA on the back of your pledge cards, which are on your seat, has given some direction. You might want to look at it. It's called Fair Share Giving, and it talks about where you are in your life financially and how much the church means to you. That might help. What you pledge to this church is absolutely what you want to pledge. What do you hope to get from this church in the next fiscal year? I want to share with you a story about what I hope to get from this church in the next fiscal year. It's Christmas, last year, December, and we're decorating the church. I'm in a really bad mood. One, I just was in a bad mood. And secondly, we had to decorate. I do not like decoration. And I'm trying my best to smile and do it. And Judy Carey comes right here, says to me, you know, MJ's done a great job of being the lead of the care team. Now, the care team is a team that takes care of us when we need it. She says, well, you know, MJ and George are leaving, so would you be willing to take over the care team? I said, I hate sick people. I still can't believe I said it. I went home. It really shook me. I went home and I talked to my kids, and they said, it doesn't surprise us. I got work to do. So what did Judy say? Here's what Judy said right there. Just didn't even take her a second. She said, Susan, you don't have to deal with sick people. You have to deal with databases. And I know you love databases. Well, I do love databases. But I am going to use this. I said yes, because I'm going to use it as an opportunity to get to the bottom of this. There's really some work to be done. So the care team, under my leadership, will be looking at not only caring for the rest of you, but figuring out what caring means for us. So join us if you'd like. That's about me. What about you? Think about it as you're filling out your pledge card. It's not just about putting your name and how much you're going to pledge, but what do you want out of this church in the next fiscal year? Who should pledge? Well, this is interesting. When I grew up Catholic, and I don't remember pledging, but I do remember getting an envelope from the church. And in that envelope, well, it was really a box, and in the box was a bunch of envelopes, one for every Sunday, stamped with the date. A lot of you are nodding. We took out the envelope, each one of us, through high school, put in our money, licked it, put it in the offertory basket as it was passed. I don't think it's such a bad idea to have children fill out the pledge card and say, what do they want to get out of the church? How much do they want to pledge? And then help the child fulfill that pledge over the fiscal year. Not a bad idea. Also, affinity groups. This church has some amazing affinity groups. The book clubs, the film forum, the card night. There are some people who love those affinity groups, but don't come to church on Sunday, and maybe don't think about pledging, but they get some benefit. I mean, they get the building, or they get the Zoom, or they get the organization behind those affinity groups. So at your next affinity group meeting, you might want to talk about pledging. What can they do to help us continue being the church of fine friends and wonderful opportunities? What's our goal? David, if you could, okay, got the first one. What does the board think they need for the next fiscal year? Could you give me, David, number one? Oh, that shows, just to be, Sarah put that in. She wanted to make sure we understood that we were on the top of the organizational chart. Here's an interesting thing, that 95% of the expenses for this church will be paid by your pledges. Now, another 5%, which is about 10 grand, will come from donations that we get on Sunday, which is meaningful, but the majority of the income for this church is from the pledges. Next one, please, David. Okay, well, this one's not showing, so I'll just let you know. Here it is. Staff salary and benefits. They need $220,000, and $160,000 of that 220, which is really 72%, goes to staff. So our biggest expense is staff. After that, we've got $40,000 going to operating, building and such. The mortgage is paid, but we still have expenses there. $9,000, almost $10,000 go to the UUA, which you might wonder, why do we have to pay so much money to the UUA? It's really important. Having been in leadership, they help us a lot. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today. Let me just say it that way. And then worship. There's another $15,000 that go to worship. But the majority go to staff, salary, and benefits. The total, did we get the 20,000 came up? Okay, that's a total. And the board says that's what they need, and that's what we hope to get through this pledge campaign. Now, if we don't get it, it's not like we're going to turn the lights off. There are other ways to bring more money in. There are other ways to cut expenses. Hopefully, it won't be the wonderful staff, but we'll let the board know what has to be done after the pledge campaign is over. Okay, your pledge cards are due 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, March 4th. Fill them out as soon as possible. You can fill them out on the website. You don't even have to use that paper. You just go on the website, fill it out, and you're done. Or you can fill out it on the paper and bring it back to church. You can mail it back to church, fill it out on the roof of the church. We don't care where you fill it out and how you return it, but you have 2 weeks to do it. If you don't do it in 2 weeks, you'll get a call from the board. And the board is busy. They don't really need to be calling you, so we really would like you to get on board with this campaign and fill out those cards in the next 2 weeks. We will be updating you on the progress of the campaign over the next 3 weeks. So again, it'll be about money, but it's only going to last 2 weeks. Sarah will be sending out 3 announcements how we're doing to help remind you to fill out your cards. By March 14th, which is less than a month away, we'll be done with this whole thing. Whew, yay. So to summarize, you own this church. Decide whether you want to invest in it. Your pledge is not a donation. It's a commitment. It's a commitment to help this church carry out its mission in the next fiscal year. Figure out, what is your why? Why would you want to do it? What do you want to get from the church in the next fiscal year? The opportunities are many. Take them. But don't take too much time doing it, because you've got 2 weeks to fill out those cards so that this church can get on with the mission that we dearly love. Thank you for joining me today. You are open, you are willing. We are not hopeless. That would be really, really strange. Thank you.
So for people who came late today, I noticed some of our visitors, just wanting everybody to know, I had said this earlier, that we once a year have a stewardship campaign, and this is our kickoff Stewardship Sunday. So I never want anybody to think that UU services are all about money. But we do need to talk about money once a year, because money keeps the lights on. So each year when a UU congregation starts its stewardship campaign, the minister is expected to deliver a brilliant sermon on the importance of supporting the church. Now, some of these sermons are extremely witty and clever. Apparently, a former minister of this congregation used to deliver what he called the Sermon on the Amount. Thanks, Barry, Reverend Barry, for your joke that I got to recycle. Because I don't have anything super clever today, but there are competitions for stewardship sermons among UU ministers and entire books written about how to write them and then compilations of them. But alas, no clever muse has bestowed her wisdom upon me this past week, and I'm left only with my straightforward and endearing sincerity to share this morning. I really milk that sincerity thing. Now, I believe that Columbine is worth supporting. I believe that sincerely with my whole heart because I believe this place provides something unique and important to the world. And I want you to know that I've been here 2.5, almost 3 years, and my experience of our Board of Trustees is that they are extremely conscientious and responsible stewards of your investment. It's all transparent, too. We try here to keep our budget as minimal as we can, and to do this, we ask people to volunteer and do whatever we can for free. Instead of buying food for gatherings, we crowdsource for potlucks. We ask members to contribute your expertise to managing our technology and to maintaining our building. And we rely on volunteers to help teach our children and mentor our youth and create worship and organize events. If we paid for all the things that people do here, our budget would be $500,000. I mean, it would be a lot. So Columbine really needs your time and talent to survive and thrive. We strive here to pay our part-time staff according to UUA guidelines and to keep our staffing as minimal as possible. We own this building and we don't have a mortgage, which is a wonderful blessing. But since this building is the same age as me, born in 1971, it needs ongoing maintenance, just like me. Now, of course, the cost of utilities is ever escalating, especially this past year, along with our church insurance went way up and our other bills. So just like Colorado Public Radio, we are going to rely on sustaining pledges to keep our lights on and our staff paid. So I was thinking about my own charitable giving, and as many of you know, up until a couple of years ago, I was a single mother with 4 kids. So I wasn't particularly burdened with a painful dilemma of how to give my extra money away. But nonetheless, about 8 years ago, my home congregation, First Universalist, had a capital campaign to raise over $4 million to remodel the church building. That was a little bit bigger church than ours is. So I got really excited in my little environmentalist heart because the plan was to rebuild the church to be carbon neutral with geothermal heat and solar panels and green materials. Now, I was definitely on the lower end of the financial spectrum at that church, but my kids and I scraped some money together to make a contribution to the rebuild. We also contributed to the purchase of a chair for the new sanctuary that has a plaque on the back of it commemorating one of my UU mentors who passed away during that time. So today, whenever I enter First Universalist Church, I know that my donation to that building was just a little small percentage of what it took to build it. But nonetheless, my kids and I like to find that chair with Louise's name on it. And even though I don't get a chance to go there very often because I'm busy on Sunday mornings, I still feel a good feeling knowing that I contributed to make that beautiful place happen. It feels good to know that I helped build a place where the Progress Pride flag and the Black Lives Matter banner are proudly displayed off Hampton and Colorado Boulevard, and to know that I helped create a place that welcomes everyone. So just like our church at First Universalist and many UU churches, people are working hard for immigration rights, reproductive justice, and also First Universalist is hosting unhoused people parking in their lot. Their minister, Eric Banner, is a voice for promoting our UU values in the wider world. Where else are our values of compassion and inclusion promoted so boldly and acted on so sincerely? And while I know that my money could have been spent well by another organization that shares our UU values, of which there are many, I know that by supporting a UU congregation, I'm helping create a place where those organizations can come in and speak and collect money and educate folks on their mission, where UUs can come on Donate the Plate Sundays and learn about social justice. Our UU churches are a community hub. And at UU churches, you can also help get out the vote during election season. You can work with other people to support humane legislation and to dismantle systems of oppression. And I am amazed and delighted by the work of this church. Enough talking about First Universalist. Let's talk about Columbine. In our weekly email, The Columbine Connection, our administrator, Sarah, recently published the amounts of money that this church has collected for various organizations doing great work this past year. I don't have the number in my head, but I was like, wow, cool. We serve as a hub to promote and support so much good work. But there's another piece too, another reason that UU congregations like this one are so needed. They are needed because we all need a place to lay it down, to rest and to recover from the hard work of being human. Spiritual community is something by its nature we cannot do on our own. And having a place to explore the big questions together and fill up our buckets is a gift, but it's also a necessity. Unitarian Universalists tend to be doers, busy bees who retirement does not even make a dent in. I'm looking at you all. And you all work hard for your church and for your families and for the outside world. And busy bees need a place to pause because we care. We know about the atrocities, the injustices, the suffering in this world, and we care. But if we're going to stay hopeful and grounded, just like that song you all sang today, we need a safe place to replenish ourselves. And Columbine at its best is an oasis and a place where we gather and fill each other up. And getting that balance between working hard for justice and filling up our buckets takes some intentionality. One member said to me this past week that this sanctuary should be a place where on Sunday mornings we stop talking about work, that we be mindful of letting ourselves have that hour of rest. And I think that's a great idea. I mean, we share this space that lots of things happen in our sanctuary. I shared with that person something about the culture of Twin Oaks, a large intentional community in Virginia where I used to live many years ago. Since Twin Oakers both live and work on the farm, they've developed what they call a norm, that when you see somebody in a public space and you want to talk about work, you ask first, "Can I ask a work question?" Because just like this little church, work can take over our lives if we aren't vigilant, and our relationships. Now, you may have noticed I struggle with this still 25 years later, and you can only imagine what 25-year-old Jenny was like. Oh my God. Sometimes I, in those days, let my passion for the work of building intentional community overtake every, my ex-husband calls it spray foam, like every inch of everything was full. And I'm still working on that one. It takes me a while. And what I'm hearing here is I'm not the only one. This past week, I listened as 3 of our church members spoke about how active and energetic and effective this church can be, and also how exhausting. They each shared their stories about their need to maintain the balance of being and doing, of motion and refreshment. And this is a challenge in this crowd because we're ambitious and we have a lot going on. This is a full-service little church. And lately there's been a real upsurge in energy and participation here. One big example several weeks ago, Columbine members heard that there were many, many migrants, cold and unhoused and hungry in our local community. And they quickly created the Columbine Migrant Support Team, and since then have been working with the local community and local faith communities to collect supplies and donations and to feed hungry people. And because of them, people from the area have been dropping things off here at our church, and they are interested in knowing more about who we are. Columbine has also developed strong interfaith, multicultural connections in our wider community with our neighbors across the street and our Episcopal Friends of the Holy Redeemer. And now, next Sunday, we will be getting together also with Reverend Alwyn's Lutheran Church of the Master folks, and we'll talk about anti-racism together. So this little church has it all. We've got faith development for all ages, groups to lend emotional support and teach spiritual practice, and for fun and fellowship, like Susan shared, we folks together at Columbine are not just serving, but we're also hiking and camping and reading and watching films and making music and even doing crafts. And it all runs on your love and passion for this place. We worship together here with beautiful music and words to replenish our souls. We meditate together. And the prayers and music and ideas and spiritual practices that we share here help fill up our buckets. This church is a channel for our collective healing and also for amplifying our voices. What a blessing it is to have the opportunity to support Columbine. This is why I have chosen to give my energy, my one precious life, in the best spiritual and ethical tradition that I have found. A tradition rooted in the exploration and discussion of the best way to use our bodies, minds, and resources, our one precious lives, to create a kinder world. But of course, no one is served if we work ourselves to exhaustion on that mission. Recently, someone here told me they had not come to a worship service because this sanctuary had become a place of stress and responsibility. And that's not okay. We are committed to showing up even when it's tough because we know that the real rewards of building community together can manifest in our lives. But if a feeling of burnout and dread has invaded our spiritual home, our sanctuary, then it's time to share the load, to do less, to recalibrate. I'm speaking this to myself too. This is a place where we put ourselves out there, but just as importantly, it's a place to rest, to meditate, to pray, to laugh and relax, and sometimes to be quiet in ourselves. Even for those of us here who are paid to carry the responsibilities of keeping our church running, it's not good for anyone if this place becomes a place of burden and anxiety. The spiritual practice of being an active part of a beloved little church is learning when to say yes and when to say no. It's discovering our own balance between putting ourselves out there and nurturing ourselves and resting. So just like our children's story today about those concentric circles, first we need to care for ourselves and find a joy that sustains us. And then, this is radical, we need to pause long enough to notice what we've done. How about this? take a walk in our labyrinth. Like, who has time for that? We do. Because I say we do. I mean, I haven't done it myself. Light a candle, close your eyes. Let the music touch you. This place is here for you to give to and to receive from. And this church is here to help you to be your best, most refreshed and loved up selves, to support you in that first concentric circle of yourself, then your closest circle of people and your day-to-day interactions with work and family. And then it's here to support the relationships with our faith community and into the wider community. And I believe the world needs this community. So even when people here are getting on your nerves, we are called to show up and to ask ourselves, hey, why is this place getting on my nerves? What's out of whack here? We need our village as a reflection, a mirror, to show ourselves who we are and to discover who we are. And I'll tell you what I've learned. Some people have heard me with this revelation. Reverend Alwyn calls me Tigger. And I learned recently, because of my relationships here, that sometimes my Tigger energy can be a bit exhausting for people. Sometimes it's exhausting for me and Jason. Sometimes it takes some trial and error to learn these things, but we cannot do this alone or in a vacuum. How would I have known I was Tigger if I wasn't bouncing it off of everybody else? Every day I learn from you all, and I learn from seeing myself reflected in our relationships. And how many places do we have in our modern lives where we have that opportunity to get real? It's here in this little village that we have created, the one where we are intentional about culture change and inclusivity and multiculturalism and truly embracing diversity. This is a good place to learn who we are. And because of that, I believe with all my heart that Columbine UU Church is a cause worthy of your generous support. This church is alive and growing. There are new faces, people of all ages, families, single folks, young and old, all excited to claim this place as a spiritual home. This is what we dreamed of as we emerged from social distancing and low times of staff turnover and the pandemic. But you all had faith in this place, hiring new staff and investing in our outdoor space and our AV system. And now we are seeing the fruits of that investment. New members are excited to lend their skills and passions to co-creating this new, never seen or invented before version of Columbine UU Church. But all the skills and the passion in the world won't pay the bills. So I would encourage you to think about what you can pledge that might even be a little bit of a stretch, because I want you all to feel that same feeling that I feel when I walk into First Universalist. I contributed to that building and to the future of that church and the future of our UU faith. And I want you all to feel that same pride in having supported this place, because Columbine is a special place. It's a place of passion and compassion, vision and hope. And we are counting on you to maintain it as a source of joy and spiritual renewal for years to come. Blessed be, and may it be so.